The morning light filtered through the tall windows of Anmare Hall, casting gentle shadows across the breakfast room where Catherine sat with her cup of tea, watching the Norfolk countryside wake up. It had been exactly 9 months since she had shared the most difficult news of her life with the world, and now, as December approached, she found herself reflecting on how much had changed, not just for her family, but for millions who had followed their journey. The year 2024 had begun like any other for the Wales family. There were the usual royal engagements, school runs for George, Charlotte, and Louis, and the comfortable rhythm of family life that Catherine and William had worked so hard to establish. But then came January's planned surgery, and with it, discoveries that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their future. As Catherine traced the rim of her teacup with her finger, she remembered those early days when the word cancer had first entered their vocabulary. The shock, the fear, the immediate instinct to protect their children while processing the magnitude of what lay ahead. William had been her rock during those dark moments when the future seemed uncertain, his steady presence a constant reminder that they would face whatever came their way together. The children had been remarkably resilient, though she knew they sensed the gravity of the situation, even when the adults tried to shield them from the worst of it. George, at 11, had shown a maturity beyond his years, quietly helping with his younger siblings. Charlotte, ever the observant one, had drawn countless pictures of rainbows and flowers, leaving them on her mother's bedside table with notes that simply said, "Get well soon, Mummy." And Louis, with his infectious giggle and boundless energy, had perhaps been the greatest medicine of all, his innocent joy serving as a daily reminder of what truly mattered. The world had watched and waited, speculating about her absence from public life. Social media had buzzed with theories and concerns, but Catherine had remained focused on her treatment, her family, and her recovery. The privacy they had fought so hard to maintain around their children's lives became even more precious during this period, creating a protective cocoon where healing could happen away from public scrutiny. By September, when she was finally able to announce the completion of her chemotherapy treatment, Catherine had gained a new perspective on life, love, and what it meant to truly connect with others. The overwhelming response from people around the world, sharing their own stories of struggle and recovery, had touched her deeply. She realized that her journey, as difficult as it had been, had opened a door to something beautiful, a deeper understanding of human resilience and the power of compassion. It was during one of their evening walks around the estate that William had first mentioned the Christmas message. They had been talking about the approaching holiday season, about how different this Christmas would feel compared to the previous year. "You know," he had said, taking her hand as they paused by the old oak tree where they had filmed the video announcing the end of her treatment, "perhaps this year our Christmas message could be different too. More personal, more real." Catherine had understood immediately what he meant, after everything they had been through, after witnessing firsthand the kindness of strangers and the power of love to carry people through their darkest moments. They had a story to tell. Not just their story, but a universal story about hope, resilience, and the incredible strength that emerges when communities come together. The idea began to take shape, slowly evolving from their conversations with their communications team at Kensington Palace. This wouldn't be a traditional royal Christmas card or a formal statement. It would be something that came from their hearts, something that acknowledged the struggles they had faced while celebrating the love and support that had carried them through. As Catherine watched the frost begin to form on the garden outside, she thought about the letter she had already begun drafting for her annual Christmas carol service. The words, "love, not fear," had come to her during one of her quiet moments of reflection, and she knew they would become central to everything they wanted to share with the world this Christmas. The service at Westminster Abbey had always been special to her, but this year, it would carry additional meaning. It would be her first major public appearance since completing treatment, and she wanted it to be a celebration not just of Christmas, but of the human spirit's capacity for kindness and connection. The 1,600 guests who would attend represented every corner of the United Kingdom, people who had shown extraordinary compassion to others in their communities. Their stories of service and sacrifice had inspired her throughout her recovery. That evening, as William helped the children with their homework, and the house settled into its comfortable evening rhythm, Catherine sat down at her writing desk. She wanted to capture not just their gratitude. The Christmas message they would share with the world needed to acknowledge the darkness they had all faced while pointing toward the light that had guided them through. The words began to flow, each sentence carrying the weight of months of reflection and growth. She wrote about love as a light that shines brightest in the darkest times, about the importance of slowing down to truly see and support one another, and about the Christmas story's enduring message of hope and renewal. But most importantly, she wrote about the incredible people who had surrounded their family with love and support, proving that even in the most challenging circumstances, humanity's capacity for kindness knows no bounds. The first week of December brought an unseasonable warmth to London, and Westminster Abbey seemed to glow in the afternoon light as Catherine walked through its historic halls. The Together at Christmas carol service was just days away, and she could feel the anticipation building not just within the palace walls, but across the entire country. This year's service would be different, deeper, more meaningful, shaped by experiences that had fundamentally changed how she viewed the world. In her private study at Kensington Palace, Catherine had spent countless hours refining the letter that would be given to each of the 1,600 guests attending the service. Every word had been carefully chosen, each sentence crafted to reflect not just her personal journey, but the universal truths she had discovered about human connection and resilience. The letter would also reach the 15 community carol services taking place across the United Kingdom, extending her message of hope far beyond the Abbey's ancient walls. "Christmas is one of my favorite times of the year," she had written. And as she read those words aloud to William, she realized how much deeper that sentiment had become. Christmas had always been special to their family, but this year it represented something more profound, a celebration of life itself, of recovery, of the love that had sustained them through their most challenging months. William had been quietly working on his own contribution to their Christmas message, spending time with their communications team to ensure that their shared story would reach as many people as possible. He had watched his wife's journey with a mixture of admiration and protective concern, and he wanted the world to understand not just what she had endured, but how she had transformed her experience into a source of strength for others. The children had been involved in the planning process in their own ways. George, now 12 and increasingly aware of his future role, had asked thoughtful questions about why their Christmas message mattered so much this year. Charlotte had contributed her artistic talents, creating drawings that would later inspire some of the decorative elements for the carol service. And Louis, true to form, had provided a constant stream of enthusiasm and innocent observations that reminded his parents of the joy that could be found even in the most serious moments. The photo that would eventually become their Christmas card had been selected from the emotional video they had shared in September. It captured a moment of pure family unity, the five of them embracing in the golden light of a Norfolk afternoon, their arms wrapped around each other in a gesture that spoke volumes about what truly mattered. The decision to use this image rather than commission a new photograph was deliberate. It was authentic, real, and carried the emotional weight of their journey. As Catherine prepared for the carol service, she reflected on the letters and messages that had poured in from around the world throughout her treatment. People had shared their own stories of struggle and recovery, creating an invisible network of support that transcended borders and backgrounds. A woman from Scotland had written about caring for her elderly mother with dementia, finding strength in Catherine's example of facing uncertainty with grace. A young father from Wales had described how Catherine's openness about her fears had given him the courage to seek treatment for his own health concerns. These stories had profoundly shaped the message Catherine wanted to share this Christmas. She had come to understand that vulnerability, when met with courage and surrounded by love, could become a source of incredible strength. The Christmas story itself was about this kind of transformative love, the willingness to be open, to trust, to believe in the possibility of light even in the darkest circumstances. The theme for this year's carol service, love and empathy, had emerged naturally from Catherine's own experiences and observations. She had witnessed firsthand how small acts of kindness could illuminate entire lives, how a simple gesture of support could carry someone through their most difficult day. The healthcare workers who had cared for her with such tenderness, the teachers who had provided extra support for her children, the countless individuals who had sent prayers and positive thoughts, all had contributed to a tapestry of love that had sustained her family through their ordeal. Working with the Royal Foundation, Catherine had ensured that this year's guests represented the very best of community spirit. There were volunteers who had spent countless hours supporting vulnerable families, healthcare workers who had gone above and beyond in their care for patients, teachers who had created safe spaces for children facing difficult circumstances, and young people who had organized initiatives to help their peers. Each guest had a story of service, a commitment to making their corner of the world a little brighter. The rehearsals for the carol service had been particularly moving. Olivia Dean, Gregory Porter, Paloma Faith, and J.P. Cooper had all brought their own interpretations to the traditional carols, infusing them with contemporary meaning while honoring their timeless messages. The Westminster Abbey Choir, with their centuries of musical tradition, provided a foundation of continuity and reverence that connected the present moment to generations of Christmas celebrations. One afternoon, as Catherine watched the sustainable decorations being installed throughout the Abbey, the kindness tree outside the Abbey, where guests would be invited to hang dedications to people who had supported them, seemed to perfectly capture what this Christmas message was about, acknowledging the network of love and support that surrounds every life, often invisible but always present. The decision to broadcast the service on Christmas Eve had been carefully considered. It would reach millions of homes across the United Kingdom and beyond, carrying Catherine's message of hope and healing into living rooms, where families might be facing their own challenges. The timing felt perfect, a bridge between Christmas Eve's anticipation and Christmas Day's celebration, a moment of quiet reflection before the joy of the holiday itself. William had been particularly moved by one element of Catherine's letter, her acknowledgement that we are all each other's light. During his own difficult moments throughout the year, watching his wife face her diagnosis while his father also battled cancer, he had discovered the profound truth in those words. The support they had received from family, friends, and strangers had literally carried them through their darkest hours. As the final preparations for the carol service continued, Catherine found herself thinking about the broader impact of their Christmas message. It wasn't just about sharing their own experience, but about creating a space for others to recognize and celebrate the love and support in their own lives. In a world often focused on division and difference, their message would be a reminder of the connections that bind us all together. The universal human need for compassion, understanding, and hope. December 6th dawned crisp and clear, with the kind of winter light that makes London's ancient buildings seem to glow from within. Westminster Abbey, dressed in its sustainable Christmas decorations, stood ready to host what many would later describe as the most emotionally powerful royal Christmas service in years. Catherine stood before her mirror that morning, adjusting the red coat that would soon become iconic in photographs around the world, knowing that this day represented far more than a traditional carol service. The butterflies in her stomach reminded her of her wedding day, though. This nervousness came from a different place. She was about to stand before 1,600 guests and, through television cameras, millions more viewers, as herself, not just as the Princess of Wales, but as a woman who had faced mortality and emerged with a deeper understanding of what truly mattered in life. The letter in her handbag contained words that had been born from the darkest moments of her year, polished through weeks of careful reflection. William had been up early, helping the children prepare for what would be their first major public appearance as a family since Catherine's treatment ended. George, Charlotte, and Louis understood the significance of the day, though they approached it with the mixture of solemnity and excitement that only children can manage. They had coordinated their outfits in navy and red, creating a visual harmony that would later be praised in newspapers around the world for its understated elegance. The journey from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey was quiet, each family member lost in their own thoughts about the months that had led to this moment. Catherine watched London pass by outside the car window, thinking about all the letters and messages of support that had arrived from every corner of the city and beyond. Today felt like a completion of a circle that had begun with her March announcement of her diagnosis. Upon arrival at the Abbey, Catherine was greeted by the dean and clergy, their warm smiles reflecting the deep respect and affection that had grown throughout her involvement with the annual service. This was her 4th year hosting the Together at Christmas Carol service, but she could feel that this edition carried a weight and significance that transcended tradition. The Abbey itself seemed to embrace them, its ancient stones bearing witness to centuries of human joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle. The guests began arriving, and Catherine was struck by the diversity of stories represented in the congregation. There was Mrs. Sarah Mitchell, an 80-year-old volunteer who had spent the year delivering meals to isolated seniors in her Yorkshire village. Jamie Thompson, a 16-year-old who had organized a mental health support network for his fellow students after losing a friend to suicide. Dr. C.A. Priya Patel, who had worked extra shifts throughout the year to ensure that cancer patients in her care never felt alone during their treatment. Each person carried their own story of service and sacrifice, their own understanding of what it meant to be a light for others in dark times. As Catherine greeted them, she was reminded again and again of the letter tucked safely in her handbag. Words about love being the light that shines brightest in our darkest times were not theoretical concepts, but lived realities for every person in that abbey. The service began with the Westminster Abbey Choir's ethereal voices filling the sacred space, their harmonies seeming to lift everyone present above their earthly concerns. Catherine felt William's reassuring presence beside her, their children arranged next to them, the family unit that had been tested and strengthened by their shared experience. When it came time for the readings, she listened to Prince William deliver his words with a gravity and emotion that reflected the year they had all endured. Olympian Adam Peaty spoke about resilience and the power of community support in overcoming seemingly impossible challenges. His words resonated with particular power, given his own journey back from injury and personal struggles. Sophie Okanedo's reading brought tears to many eyes as she spoke about the healing power of love and compassion. Michelle Dockery and Richard E. Grant each contributed their own perspectives on finding light in darkness, their celebrity status somehow making their words even more accessible to the viewing audience. But it was during the musical performances that Catherine felt the true power of the evening begin to unfold. Olivia Dean's voice soared through the Abbey as she sang "When I Was a Child," her interpretation bringing fresh relevance to ancient words about hope and renewal. Gregory Porter's deep, soulful tones transformed traditional carols into something that spoke directly to the heart. Paloma Faith brought her unique energy to the proceedings, while J.P. Cooper's contemporary style bridged the gap between tradition and modernity. Throughout the service, Catherine was acutely aware of the television cameras that would carry their message around the world. But more importantly, she was present to the immediate experience, the faces of the congregation, many of whom had tears in their eyes, the collective intake of breath during particularly moving moments, the sense of shared humanity that filled the ancient space. The highlight of the evening came when Catherine herself stepped forward to deliver her personal message. Standing at the lectern looking out at the sea of faces that represented the very best of human nature, she began to read from the letter that had taken weeks to perfect. Her voice was clear and strong, carrying the hard-won wisdom of someone who had looked uncertainty in the face and emerged with greater faith in humanity's capacity for love. "Christmas is one of my favorite times of the year," she began, and those simple words carried the weight of a year that had redefined what favoritism and joy could mean. It is a time for celebration and joy, but it also gives us the opportunity to slow down and reflect on the deeper things that connect us all. The Abbey was absolutely silent except for her voice, every person present hanging on her words. When she spoke about love being the light that shines bright even in the darkest times, there was an audible intake of breath from the congregation. These weren't platitudes or royal speech writing. These were words earned through experience, polished by pain, and offered with the authenticity that only comes from having lived through genuine difficulty. The most powerful moment came when she addressed the guests directly. "This carol service is a heartfelt celebration of every one of you, and a reminder that at Christmas, and throughout the year, we must all shine for each other. Because in times of joy and sadness, we are all each other's light." The cameras captured tears flowing freely throughout the Abbey, including on the faces of her own family members. As the service concluded with the traditional carols that had echoed through that same space for centuries, Catherine felt a profound sense of completion. The message she had wanted to share with the world had been delivered not just through her words, but through the collective experience of everyone present. The kindness tree outside would soon be decorated with hundreds of dedications, each one a testament to the invisible networks of love and support that sustain communities everywhere. Walking out of the Abbey with her family, Catherine knew that something significant had been accomplished. The service would be broadcast on Christmas Eve, carrying their message of hope and healing into millions of homes. But the real magic had already happened, in that moment when a community of carers and supporters had gathered to celebrate the very best of human nature, proving that even in the most challenging times, love truly is the light that guides us all home. The week following the carol service brought an unexpected flurry of activity to Kensington Palace as the communications team worked to finalize the Wales family's Christmas card. Unlike previous years when they might commission a formal portrait, this year's approach would be radically different. The image they had chosen, a still from the September video announcing the end of Catherine's chemotherapy treatment, carried an emotional weight that no posed photograph could match. Will Ward, the videographer who had captured that golden afternoon in Norfolk, could never have imagined when he filmed the family embracing in the countryside that the moment would become one of the most recognized Christmas images of the year. The photograph showed the five Waleses sitting together outdoors, their arms wrapped around each other in a gesture of unity and love that had been genuine and unguarded. William and Catherine flanked their three children, all of them wearing coordinated blues and whites that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural backdrop. The decision to use this particular image had not been taken lightly. Palace aides had initially suggested commissioning a new photograph, perhaps something more traditionally festive, but both William and Catherine felt strongly that this year's Christmas card needed to reflect the reality of their journey. The September photograph represented hope, healing, and the power of family love, themes that had become central to their Christmas message. Catherine spent considerable time reviewing the various versions of the card design. The simple message, "Wishing you a very happy Christmas and New Year," would accompany the photograph, letting the image itself carry the deeper emotional weight. The final design incorporated subtle animated elements for the digital version, gentle snowflakes falling across the image, creating a magical, almost ethereal effect that enhanced rather than overshadowed the photograph's natural beauty. The contrast with previous years was striking. Their 2023 Christmas card had featured a black and white portrait taken by fashion photographer Josh Schinner, showing the family in matching white button-down shirts and jeans. It had been elegant and timeless, but this year's card would be something entirely different, more intimate, more personal, and infinitely more meaningful given the context of their shared experience. When the team at Kensington Palace reviewed the final version, there was a unanimous sense that they had captured something special. The animated snowflakes added a touch of Christmas magic while maintaining the authenticity of the original moment. The Christmas tree emoji that would accompany their social media posts seemed almost unnecessary. The love and connection visible in the photograph spoke more powerfully than any festive symbol could. The timing of the release had been carefully coordinated. It would follow shortly after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's own Christmas card, which featured their children Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. The contrast between the two cards would be noted by royal watchers around the world, not in terms of competition, but as reflections of two families in very different places in their lives and relationships. December 19th arrived grey and drizzly in London, but inside Kensington Palace, the mood was one of quiet anticipation. The social media team made final preparations for the card's release, knowing that within hours it would be viewed by millions of people around the world. Catherine reviewed the accompanying message one final time, wishing everyone a very happy Christmas, with a Christmas tree emoji, simple, heartfelt, and perfectly suited to the image it would accompany. At exactly 6 p.m. London time, the post went live across all of the Wales family's social media platforms. Within minutes, the response was overwhelming. Comments poured in from around the world, with people sharing their own stories of struggle and recovery, thanking Catherine for her openness about her health journey, and expressing how much the family's resilience had inspired them throughout the year. "This is so much more than a Christmas card," wrote one user from Australia. "It's a reminder that love really can get us through anything." Another comment from Canada read, "After following Catherine's journey this year, seeing this photo as your Christmas card brought me to tears. Thank you for showing us what real strength looks like." The photograph's power lay in its authenticity. Unlike formal royal portraits that maintained a certain distance, this image invited viewers into an intimate family moment. You could see the genuine relief and joy on each face, the way they held each other as if they never wanted to let go. the golden light that seemed to bless their reunion and recovery. Royal photographers and media experts immediately recognized the significance of the choice. "This isn't just a Christmas card," noted royal photographer Arthur Edwards. "It's a visual representation of a family that has been through something profound and emerged stronger." The fact that they chose to share this particular moment with the world shows remarkable courage and openness. The technical aspects of the card's production revealed additional layers of thoughtfulness. The photographer, Will Warr, had initially worried about whether the original footage would translate well to a still image, but the moment they had captured proved to be perfectly composed even when frozen in time. The natural lighting of that September afternoon in Norfolk provided a warmth that no studio setup could have replicated. Body language experts analyzed every aspect of the family's positioning in the photograph. Catherine's placement at the center, surrounded by her family, spoke to her role as the emotional anchor who had guided them through their most challenging year. William's protective stance, with one arm around his wife and the other encompassing his children, demonstrated the united front they had maintained throughout their trials. The children's expressions in the photograph told their own story. George's growing maturity was evident in his thoughtful expression, while Charlotte's gentle smile reflected her role as the emotional caretaker of the family. Louis, ever the source of joy and lightness, beamed with the infectious happiness that had undoubtedly helped carry his family through their darkest moments. International media coverage of the Christmas card focused not just on the image itself, but on what it represented in terms of royal communication. "This is how you do authentic monarchy in the 21st century, observed royal correspondent Victoria Murphy. "By being real, by being vulnerable when appropriate, and by showing that even royal families face the same challenges as everyone else." The card's digital presentation included subtle interactive elements that enhanced the viewing experience. The gentle animation of falling snowflakes created a sense of movement and magic that drew viewers deeper into the moment. Social media algorithms quickly identified the post as highly engaging content, amplifying its reach far beyond the family's direct followers. Within 24 hours, the Christmas card had been shared hundreds of thousands of times across various platforms. News outlets around the world featured the image alongside stories about the family's journey through Catherine's illness and recovery. The simple act of sharing their Christmas greetings had become a global conversation about resilience, love, and the importance of family during difficult times. Perhaps most significantly, the card sparked countless conversations in homes around the world about the challenges people were facing in their own lives and the sources of support that were helping them through. Catherine and William's decision to be vulnerable and authentic had given others permission to acknowledge their own struggles while celebrating the love that sustains them. In choosing to share this particular moment as their Christmas card, they had created something far more powerful than a seasonal greeting. They had offered a universal reminder that love truly is the light that shines brightest in our darkest times. Christmas Eve morning arrived with the kind of perfect winter weather that seemed designed for the occasion. Crisp air, bright sunshine, and just enough frost to make everything sparkle. Across the United Kingdom and around the world, millions of families were beginning their Christmas preparations, many of them planning to gather around their televisions that evening to watch the royal carols. Together at Christmas broadcast on ITV1 and ITVX. At Sandringham, where the Wales family had traveled for their traditional Christmas celebration with the royal family, Catherine woke with a sense of profound gratitude. The events of the past few weeks, the carol service, the release of their Christmas card, and the overwhelming global response to both, had exceeded every expectation. Their message of love and hope had reached far beyond anything they had imagined when they first began crafting their Christmas communications. The breakfast table at Anmer Hall buzzed with excitement as George, Charlotte, and Louis discussed the evening's broadcast. They had seen previews of the edited program and were thrilled to know that people around the world would be watching their family's special Christmas service. "Do you think they'll understand why it was so important?" Charlotte asked her mother, demonstrating the emotional intelligence that had helped carry the family through their difficult year. Catherine smiled, remembering the thousands of messages that had poured in since the card's release. "I think they already do, sweetheart," she replied. "Sometimes the most powerful messages are the simplest ones, that we all need love, that we're all here to help each other, and that even when things seem very difficult, there's always hope." The response to their Christmas initiatives had been unlike anything the royal family had experienced in recent memory. Social media engagement had reached record levels, but more importantly, the quality of the responses suggested that their message was resonating on a deeply personal level with people facing their own challenges. Cancer support organizations reported increased engagement from people seeking help and offering support to others. Community volunteer programs across the UK noted a surge in applications from people inspired by the stories shared during the carol service. Dr. Amanda Harrison, Chief Executive of Cancer Research UK, had reached out personally to thank Catherine for her openness throughout her journey. "Your willingness to share your experience has undoubtedly saved lives," she had written. "We've seen a measurable increase in people seeking early screening and treatment, and your message about the importance of support systems has resonated with patients and families across the country." International reaction had been equally moving. The French First Lady had sent a personal note expressing how Catherine's courage had inspired her own work with families facing medical challenges. Messages had arrived from heads of state, celebrities, and ordinary citizens from every continent, all sharing how the Wales family's openness about struggle and recovery had touched their lives. Perhaps most meaningfully, the 15 community carol services that had taken place across the UK in conjunction with the Westminster Abbey event had all reported extraordinary attendance and community engagement. In small villages and large cities alike, people had gathered to celebrate the same themes of love, empathy, and mutual support that Catherine had articulated in her letter. Local organizers reported that many attendees had commented on feeling inspired by the royal family's example to be more open about their own challenges and more active in supporting their neighbors. The technical team at ITV had worked tirelessly to ensure that the Christmas Eve broadcast would capture the full emotional impact of the live service. Catherine's personal introduction, recorded specifically for the television audience, provided context for viewers who might not have followed her journey throughout the year. Her voice, warm and steady, guided viewers through the service while sharing insights about what the evening had meant to her personally. Across the United Kingdom, there are so many inspiring people embracing those in need, Catherine's voice would tell viewers as the program opened. "This carol service is a heartfelt celebration of every one of you, and a reminder that at Christmas and throughout the year, we must all shine for each other, because in times of joy and sadness, we are all each other's light." The editing had been done with extraordinary care, ensuring that the television audience would feel as if they were present in Westminster Abbey for the live event. Close-up shots captured the emotional responses of guests, while wide shots showcased the Abbey's magnificent architecture, dressed in its sustainable Christmas decorations. The kindness tree, now fully decorated with hundreds of dedications from service attendees, appeared throughout the broadcast as a visual symbol of the interconnected network of love and support that the service celebrated. As evening approached on Christmas Eve, families across Britain and beyond began settling in to watch the broadcast. In cancer wards and care homes, staff made special arrangements for patients and residents to view the program together. Military families separated by deployment gathered around screens in bases around the world. Expatriate British families in distant countries coordinated viewing parties to share the experience across time zones. The real-time social media response as the program aired created a virtual community of viewers sharing their reactions and personal stories. #Together at Christmas began trending worldwide as people posted about their own experiences with illness, recovery, family challenges, and community support. The conversation expanded far beyond the original broadcast, becoming a global dialogue about resilience and hope. One particularly moving thread emerged when a young mother in New Zealand shared how Catherine's openness about her cancer diagnosis had given her the courage to seek treatment for her own health concerns. "Watching someone so poised and seemingly perfect acknowledge their vulnerability made me realize it was okay to admit I was scared too," she wrote. Her post sparked hundreds of responses from people sharing similar stories about how the royal family's transparency had influenced their own health decisions. Educational institutions reported that the program had sparked meaningful conversations between students and teachers about empathy, community service, and supporting classmates through difficult times. Several schools announced new peer support programs directly inspired by the themes of the carol service. The religious community's response was equally significant. Leaders from various faiths praised the universal nature of Catherine's message, noting how themes of love, compassion, and mutual support transcended specific religious boundaries while honoring the Christian foundation of the Christmas story. The Archbishop of Canterbury issued a special statement commending the royal family's courage in using their platform to promote healing and unity. International media coverage focused not only on the content of the Christmas message but on its methodology. Royal communications experts noted that the Wales family had successfully modernized royal engagement by being authentically vulnerable while maintaining appropriate dignity. This is how monarchy remains relevant in the 21st century, observed constitutional scholar Dr. Robert Lacey, by being genuinely human while using their platform to elevate universal human values. The economic impact of the Christmas initiatives was also notable. Sales of cards and merchandise supporting cancer research organizations increased significantly in the weeks following the broadcast. Tourism organizations reported increased interest in visiting the UK, particularly Westminster Abbey and Norfolk, as people sought to connect with the locations featured in the family's story. As Christmas Day dawned across different time zones, the global conversation, initiated by Catherine and William's heartwarming message, continued to evolve and expand. Their simple decision to share their experience of struggle and recovery, expressed through a carol service and a family photograph, had created something far beyond a traditional royal Christmas greeting. In living rooms around the world, families were beginning Christmas morning with conversations about the previous evening's program. Children were asking their parents about ways they could help others in their communities. Adults were reaching out to friends and family members they hadn't spoken to in months, inspired by the reminder that we are all each other's light. The true measure of their Christmas message's success wasn't in media coverage or social media engagement statistics, but in these countless individual moments of connection, compassion, and renewed commitment to caring for one another. Catherine and William had set out to share their gratitude for the love and support that had carried them through their most challenging year. In doing so, they had reminded the world of humanity's extraordinary capacity for healing, hope, and love, proving that sometimes the most powerful messages are also the most fundamentally simple ones.